Jummah, I re-listened to the khutbah. It was a short khutbah, right? Super short, like 12 minutes.
Yes, 12 minutes. Yeah.
And no, that's probably including the salah and the adhan. But if you just extract the khutbah, it's like 12 to 14 minutes. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ came to me because I mentioned this hadith in the Jummah. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna min ma'innati fiqh ar-rajul." Indeed, a sign of the fiqh of a person is qisar khutbatihi wa tul salatihi. It's the shortness of his khutbah and the length of his salah.
Mashaykh, I was just notified after the viewers, there was no sound. And the sound now.
Okay.
And I need to say maaf because I am the sound engineer and I was sure I'm going to mess up somewhere. So my Abi showed me from there. Tawheeda painting is your wife. Showed me from here. And around
That sounds, subhanallah.
yeah, but it's all good now. It's all good now.
Make a bar. So,
It was like 10 minutes in.
Okay.
10 minutes. Subhanallah. So, I lost my
All those gems that Mona painting mentioned, I'm like, we missed it. We need to go back.
You were at the fiqh of a person, the length.
Yeah, the Prophet said the khutbah was super short because what I did was, when he said we're going to have this program, I was Googling all the mashayikh, that gave in the previous years. Yeah. And it's like 23 minutes long, 20 minutes long. So I thought this is probably going to be in that range, right? So I was quite surprised when it was 2.5 minutes long. And, that is based upon the sunnah of the Prophet. The fact that the khutbah is short and the salah is lengthened. That's number one. Number two.
So the sheikh checked the first sunnah box.
Sunnah box, yeah. Number two, for me, in my opinion, I summarized the khutbah, right? I was listening just for key points, the maqasid of the khutbah. I was looking for details because he mentioned a lot of ayat and a lot of ahadith, right? First, a point of benefit from the khutbah was the importance of taqwa, and that's how we tied tawheed into it.
Yes.
Because he said a consequence of taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is tawheed, worshipping Allah. And from there, he branched out to the pillars, to the arkanul iman, to the arkanul islam, and to the importance of ittiba of the Prophet Islam. Tasdeequ fima akhbar, believing in the Prophet, in that which he has informed us with. Doing imtithalu ma amar, doing that which is commanded us to do. Ijtinabu ma naha anhu wa zajar, staying away from that which he prohibited us from doing. And ibadatu bima shara', worshipping Allah in the way that the Prophet has legislated. This is the haqq of the Prophet over us. I don't want to give all the points away now because I want to give everyone else speaking points.
Of course.
So for me, the point number one of the khutbah was taqwa Allah Azza wa Jal. This is the way that the Prophet would start his khutbah. Those 3 ayat of taqwa. And in that, he incorporated tawheed. The oneness of Allah. A consequence of your taqwa of Allah. If you truly have taqwa of Allah, then you will, single out Allah with worship and avoid making shirk with Allah.
So it's very much in line with the Prophet ﷺ's guidelines to Mu'adh when he sends him to Yemen, because like we said before the sound went back on, we focus on secondary issues. We like back in the days. If you look at the squabbles or quarrels here in Cape Town, it's always fiqh issues. It was around beef, piece of flesh. It was around. Sheikh, that there was one point where masajid used to make dhuhr after Jummah. Most masajid used to make the dhuhr salah after Jummah. And that was a type of issues that were discussed back then. But now it's more, how can I say, aqadi, theological issues. And it should be, because that is what it's all about. But Mawlana Ibrahim, you wanted to say something, inshallah.
No, I was just gonna say in the Sheikh's Hamdanis Tanadi, you could pick up that the
way he's going with his
khutbah. So taqwa was always on top of the list there, and he says that taqwa is that commodity that brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also in how you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how you follow Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated and as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam illustrated within his sunnah. So that part, it was a very simple khutbah. It was
15 minutes, 14 minutes, 32 seconds.
Yeah, 14 minutes,
Yeah, it was very simple. It was something that we all could relate to. Something that is very practical as well. And it all stems back to taqwa and tawheed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
But for me, it was very strange that the scholar of choice this year was not an imam of the haram. If we look back, since the Mufti last made the khutbah, and he was there.
Yeah, I was
He was there.
in the crowd.
So we had Sheikh Hussein al-Sheikh, we had Sheikh Sudais,
Bandar.
we had
Bandar.
Sheikh Bandar Balila, Sheikh Maher Mu'ayqli, and then Sheikh Shithri.
But I saw Sheikh Abdullah al-Mutlaq also.
Yes.
2 years ago.
But he was Ayat Kibar al-Ulama.
Ayat
I
Kibar
don't know
al-Ulama.
what Sheikh Al-Isa's, besides being the head of Rabita, I don't know if he's on any other panel. Or if he's it could be an advisor.
I think he's an advisor because they do mention in his Wikipedia biography that he's the former Wazir al-Adl.
I never knew that.
Yeah, he's if you Google
Justice Minister.
Yeah, that's his position. Yeah, and he had a lot of. He has got a lot of political positions in Saudi. I think that's one of the reasons why why it was suggested. That's number one in my view, and an honest opinion of mine.
He's a good speaker.
He's a good speaker, definitely. He's a powerful speaker, and in his khutbah, right, he does all of these hand movements and the powerful voice.
And he goes away from the page sometimes.
Yeah.
He sticks to the script.
Yeah.
But he
interacts with the crowd as well to a certain extent, yeah. But I think it's probably because of his political positions, and I think where Saudi wants to go. He represents that.
But Sheikh, we still want to go back.
I also read that he's a proponent for separating politics from Islam.
Yeah, he's got lots of clips on these.
He's one of those that.
But even that, man, there's tafsil required. There's we need obviously husn dhan. We need to ask, what do you mean by faslu siyasa and deen, whatever the case may be. Allah knows best,
Let's get back to the khutbah. So, Sheikh Ibrahim.
No, Sheikh Yusuf, but no, I just think today for many of the speakers in Cape Town, we obviously there was a challenge, and that was what are we going to choose for our khutbahs today?
Exactly.
Because obviously it's Arafah. How do you incorporate that into your khutbah? And now, obviously, listening to the Sheikh, we find that we probably have a lot of similarities in what we said today. So we had a theme at our masjid. We were also doing the khutbatul wada of the Prophet Muhammad and there were a lot of aspects from the khutbah today that you could maybe relate to that khutbah as well, and which once again this puts that whole theme and atmosphere into the khutbah itself. So whether it was the fact that he mentioned the famous verse Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum towards the end of his khutbah, once again attaching that to the day of Arafah, and then obviously the constant mention of Tawheed and Taqwa throughout the khutbah. Sheikh Ashik said that it was concise but very profound. There's a lot that he packed into a very short khutbah.
Also, if you look at the khutbah of the Prophet, the khutbatul wada of the Prophet, there is the aspect, your relationship between you and Allah, which is Tawheed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there's the social aspect, how to treat your wives, there's no racism in the deen, whatever. He gave the exact same khutbah, but obviously with different ayat and different hadith. He spoke about Tawheed and the importance thereof. And then he went over to the qiyam of Islam, how you treat others, the akhlaq. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ.
Yeah, and I love that the part we actually mentioned and emphasize on the akhlaq, on how we should be, how our akhlaq should be, right? That the best of actions are those perfecting your akhlaq. So I think those are it's like the tawheed aspect at the beginning, and then afterwards mentioning those necessary social reforms that we need to have.
Yeah.
So once again, powerful. It was powerful.
Yeah, the fact that he mentions that we should love the entire humanity because that was the sunnah of Rasulullah.
No. I thought he was going to come. He's going to come now and push the agenda of interfaith.
Yeah, and strive to unify hearts. Unite hearts.
Yes,
he was going to make a flip there, but then he kept it simple. He says that Deen spread on that principle, unifying hearts and loving, and that is the out.
this phone.
Which one? The one that he has now?
Note 10, yeah.
Right, see?
Ultimate.
Wat het belang? You can know
P30.
Are we going back on now?
Alhamdulillah.
So must be machine. Okay.
We speaking about now?
You want to roll, Ish?
About the conduct of a believer.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ma for that disruption. We need Swahili.
No, we need the
I can't handle things alone. And can I ask Sister Tawheeda and Radia Inos just to indicate if we have sound now, if they're still watching. If this is unprofessional.
No, but it's fine. It happens to all of you.
This is if'al wala haraj. Yeah. Flexibility.
That's why most podcasts, new podcasts, when they start up, they say we are still experiencing some teething issues.
But we are experiencing
Teething issues.
load shedding issues. And
Yeah, that's a span in the works. I think the people appreciate that.
So, Mashaykh, we
We were at the conduct of a believer,
Mhm.
and the Sheikh alluded to the fact that we should and love and strive to unify hearts. Also to avoid animosity within the Islamic circle, amongst ourselves, not to be divided amongst ourselves.
That's so difficult. I think that's difficult when people have this refutist approach. You understand? I've come to the conclusion that los means off.
Yeah.
That's my personal.
It's sleeping dogs.
I'm not saying don't rectify.
Ah.
I'm not saying don't get me wrong. We have to rectify.
Definitely.
But there comes a point where, I mean, you can't be just rectifying. How are you moving forward?
Yeah.
So, do you rectify and maintain ties? Right? Or do you cut off and then rectify?
I think that the fact that he mentioned Amr bin Ma'ruf, right? And Amr bin Ma'ruf is mentioned first, right? And then afterwards you're going to advise people, try to develop people, right? And then afterwards you might need to, cut off a few things, change a few things, but that development needs to be there. And that's essentially how you build a community, is by constantly developing and not constantly, knocking people down.
Yeah.
But he was mentioning that, not to that extent, but he was saying that we're gonna face all of these things, and it's gonna be we're gonna need to address it. We're gonna need to address it, but we must maintain wisdom. There must be wisdom, and I think one of the wisdoms is when you realize that I've spoken enough times about this to the specific person, and
No, I think it's important that we remind people, but with respect, obviously.
yes,
It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
It's how you say tact. Yeah, tact is important. I was listening to a lecture by Sheikh Muhammad Hassan, and he was
You
speaking.
listen to a lot of shit.
No, I came across a series on lecture a certain topic.
If you spend time with Sheikh Yusuf, you're going to listen to a lot of Sheikh Muhammad.
When I speak about these people, I'm becoming like Sheikh Muhammad Hassan now, in the sense, when he speaks, he says, قال شيخنا شيخ ابن القيم. I'm like, it's like a few hundred years here. But he says, أحفظ جل ما كتب شيخ. I memorized most of what Sheikh Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah has written. The man has memorized most of Ibn al-Qayyim's works, right? So I was listening to a lecture series. It's on Imam Ahmad rahimahullah's book, Usul Sunnah. And now, Asl al-Thalith, the third point of the Usul Sunnah is obviously, avoiding and not sitting with the people of innovation. But the Sheikh, over 2 lectures, so beautifully defines it, man, and breaks it down and what are the rules and the dawabi of Hajj, of should I just leave a person? All of it, subhanAllah, is amazing. And one of the points that he says, right, before you, when you want to refute someone and you want to speak against something, number 1, there should be sincerity.
Yeah.
Number 1. And number 2, the fact that you should remain, you should keep ties with him, man. And then he mentions the aqwal of the scholars of the past, right? He said, in the past, the scholars were the majority. And so if they would cut off someone, that person would really feel it, man. And so that person would want to come back to the truth. But in today's time, looking at the surface today and the outside today, if you're going to cut people off, it's going to increase that person maybe in arrogance, and that person,
The Sheikh has, when he speaks about Amr bil Ma'ruf, he always mentions Amr bil Ma'ruf,
subhanallah.
والنهي عن المنكر بغير منكر.
Subhanallah.
Sometimes, I mean, a person, the refutation is like, I'm gonna break him.
Yeah, it's more. The intention is like I speak a lot to Sheikh Yusuf about this. Now today it's not rectifying my brother. There's a personality issue. My brother is popular. I need to break him down. That's it.
Or I want to be right. So there's no. You said sincerity, but there's also humility within that sincerity.
He quotes this. Muhammad Hassan quotes this. He quotes what Imam Shafi rahimahullah said. I am correct with the possibility of being incorrect. My opponent is incorrect with the possibility of being correct. There's a true sincerity when looking for the haqq, man. You get what I'm saying?
But also, there's no way that you can call to the sunnah without utilizing the sunnah. So how do you call to the sunnah but you are rigid and you are people is not going to take to that. And that's why Imam Shafi rahimahullah also says that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed Surah Al-Asr for the entirety of his deen, it would be enough, because in that verses there, you kind of given a blueprint as to
the way that you should.
That you should, man. Right? We call towards it, and if the people do not take to it, then you make sabr with him. But persist. Yeah.
No, the thing is also, the time we're living also, we can't please anyone. One of the things is that, at the end of the day, it's going to come to the person where, look, it's not what I said, it's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said and the Prophet said. If you like it, it's your choice. Even the time of Rasulullah, it's also Rasul will bring it to the table. Whoever takes it, khair. Whoever will not take. But now the thing is, these days, people want you to please them first, then advise them, then put in that form, and then it's going to come to that point where you will be now going to be too polite that you want to forget your deen aside, and then accepting all this person's also behavior.
I think that's what's expected from us with the new pronouns.
The pronoun issue now. I come from Mitchell's Plain. That stuff is non-existent in Mitchell's Plain. Ek sê altyd, there's right means problems.
For now, Sheikh, wallah, but the thing is, the infiltration is slow. It's slow, but it's happening.
Think about this now. I come from, I'm not going to mention the area, Sheikh.
Yes.
It exposes my life. Right? I come from the area adjacent to my area is like a low socio-economic area, right? But subhanAllah, they had a march there because one of the teachers wanted to push LGBTQ in a primary school, man. I mean, like, you would assume this is going to happen in the.
So they marched against the teacher.
So they marched against
the community.
Yeah, community, not Muslims, but I mean, like, you would assume, and I, being naive, assume that this will happen maybe in upper class areas, more educated areas. Not in my area, man. They're pushing it left, right, and center.
I think that all of the social ills now that we're experiencing now, that's also again due to a lack of taqwa.
Definitely.
It's also, and that is why the Shaykh pushes that from the beginning and right through his.
That's why the Prophet would start his khutbah with
taqwa. Yeah. I also like the fact that and whenever we and especially last year, if you think about last year's the khutbah last year, right? There was it was the theme of ihsan, and he once again he attaches that today, he attached that today with taqwa. Right, and the definition of ihsan, because if you look at it very carefully, they overlap in terms of their meaning. That the way that you act should be that, like, you're doing it in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or knowing that he's watching you, and which is basically the ihsan and taqwa over there. They overlap in that specific meaning. So once again, if we're doing it with taqwa, with that ihsan, then regardless of what we do, right, that's going to be the premise that we're going to do it in the best possible manner. Whether we're giving advice or whether we're just, doing our own actions of ibadah, right, it will always be in the best of manners.
But I think ihsan is really a topic that we're not pushing enough. We're not pushing enough, spirituality, growth. Yeah. That's why people come, start practicing the deen, and they are full of, like, as they say, Urdu jazba.
Yeah.
Because there's such a big concentration on the, seeking knowledge. Seeking knowledge now becomes a goal in and of itself, man. Seeking knowledge doesn't become a means to come closer to Allah. It becomes a goal.
A goal. Yeah.
I want to seek knowledge. The person knows so much information about Islam and about detailed topics about Islam that's beyond his.
But you don't see it on him.
You don't see it,
Allah.
You don't see it in his life.
Yeah.
I was reading something or listening to something. Oh, I was listening to a lecture. No, what I do is I download a lot of lectures on my phone, right? There's a app called YouTube Go.
Okay.
And you can listen to the lectures offline. So when it's load shedding, that's 2.5 hours of doing nothing. So I was listening to a book. It's called The Adab of the Scholars by Imam Al-Ajuri, one of the Salaf. And he was speaking about this topic of seeing the knowledge on the person. A true scholar, you will see the knowledge, affecting his life, man. How he looks at people, how he interacts with people, and stuff like that. I think that's ihsan is super important, and I think there's very little concentration on that.
Of course,
Spirituality.
If knowledge is not going to change the condition of the person, then it is not full
It's a
knowledge.
wabali, it's a waste, yeah.
It's not knowledge. But the Sheikh also then he poses the question that how can we attain taqwa? How do we attain taqwa? We're speaking about taqwa, and we one step ahead, we're speaking about ihsan already. But how can we attain taqwa? Because taqwa, only when you have taqwa, then you can attain ihsan. So how do you attain it? You must realize that that a believer, a person that brings about taqwa in him, he knows that Allah is going to put conditions in front of him. And that conditions is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he realizes it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he realizes also that the only being that can remove that condition is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So once we get there, then we can speak about excellence. Then we can speak about the step beyond. Like we said, it's going back to basics all the time. And how many times, and I ask this all the time, I say, when are we going to make progress if every year we have a back to basics course? But the back to basics is kind of putting us as students of Deen also in touch with where you come from, and because it is that Alif Bata that enabled you to read the Hadith today. It is the Alif Bata that has enabled you to open the books of Tafsir today. So going back to basics is going back to taqwa in order to realize the ihsan is
Sometimes it's possible because the basics were not done right or not fully comprehended, and that's why we have the results that we have now. It's not built on something which is solid. So maybe go back and focus on those basics again, and then afterwards we'll maybe get better results.
Sheikh Appleby spoke to me a few years ago, right? He had a maid, I don't know if she was Muslim, embraced Islam, or was a born Muslim, but she wasn't wearing the khimar, the scarf. So his wife would give a da'wah, you need to cover your awrah. So he told her, why don't you give a da'wah towards tawheed, loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fearing Allah azza wa jal, and this ta'zeem of Allah in your heart, then all of those things will be the consequence of that. Because we, like in our communities, we push our kids to say, Salama. But that child, later when they grow up, they don't have any attachment to Salah, so it's easy for them to neglect Salah.
The madrasa system, and I'm going to blame the madrasa system all the time. It doesn't work towards ihsan. It doesn't work towards
it's not the proper tarbiyah
and taqwa.
It's more just information.
Why would people, then just fall for every new thing? Like now, again, LGBTQ. Everybody wants to be, every man now, but every man, always wants to be girls. Why? Why all of a sudden you're feeling that you need to identify as something else? So there's nothing keeping you back. There's no muzzle. There's no...
no inhibitions.
Yeah, there's no, like, what do you call that?
Reins.
There's no reins. Nothing keeping you back because you're just free to do what you want because you memorize things. That's all what madrasa is. Memorize first kalima, second kalima,
Scattered facts.
third kalima, arkan Islam, arkan
history, PhD,
yeah, but it doesn't push you towards something. So like you said, the Prophet ﷺ worked towards something. So when Khamr became haram, in Medina it was easy. So now if you start with that, now also in our quest for seeking knowledge, we're like, okay, there's an issue around tawassul, and we jump there.
Yeah,
instead of
broad topics,
doing what we were supposed to do.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys saw the new things. Amina, the new things and the new layout.
So
Did you see it?
yeah.
It's luxury, no?
I thought it was that. That wasn't the way I remembered it.
Yeah, it's nothing like that. And the Sheikh says in his lecture, he says that Hujjaj, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has facilitated ease. And I was thinking of that. Like
even the mattresses look very lush. Everything looks very nice, laid out.
Yeah.
My first Hajj, I remember going with Hajj, the
Yes, the plastic.
It's plastic little mat, right? And then there's like a cushion this big that you blow up with your mouth. Down, and then it goes flat. So I still remember Hajj mat, and I think brass, copper, that yellow kettle mat.
Yes.
And no aircon. But that was 23 years ago. So.
Oh no.
And I went again later on. And
you had a bit of luxury.
And yet the Hajj in itself, the amount of days remains the same. The actions, the manasik, remains the same. The strenuous nature of it remains the same. And I always say they can make it how luxurious around you. Hajj is Hajj, and Hajj is meant to be difficult. It's meant to be difficult, and it's going to be difficult irrespective of what. Yet the artificial, the Hajj in itself, you're going to get. Hajj is Hajj.
And it goes back to that mindset and that basic, understanding. Because sometimes that luxury can actually be a detriment to you. Because now you're living and you're so concerned about all the things that I'm going to get and I'm supposed to get, and you forget the purpose that you're there for. I remember the one Hajj, we entered into Arafah, and we hadn't eaten anything the whole day, and we walked. And I'll never forget this day, because we were still sitting with a group of students, and we were saying, what are the chances? What are the chances that we're going to get, a nice pot of, or a nice plate of hot biryani, man? And like, I'm okay, cups of biryani, like nice. And so one of the brothers said, you want Arafah? Make dua for it. And wallahi, about a half an hour later, someone came with a pot of food, and they brought the pot of food and biryani for us, man. From like a Cape Townian lady made it. Subhanallah. And I was like, Subhanallah, this is Arafah. So sometimes we forget, we forget those luxuries. Sometimes cause us to forget some of our main objectives, and maybe that could even be superimposed onto our lifestyle as well. Just generally the way we live, maybe we need a bit more simplicity in our life to help us realize what's important.
But the Hajj in itself and Arafah in itself, that the entire Hajj is built around Arafah. And you will see that people count the days like it's like countdown to Arafah.
Yes.
Even for us in Cape Town, countdown to Arafah. And this is because Rasulullah said, Al Hajj Arafah.
Hajj.
Hajj is Arafah. Not there's other manasik as well, but the pinnacle of Hajj is Arafah. So of course it's going to be difficult. Of course there's going to be challenges. Has to be.
Yeah.
Has to be. If you look at the pictures that you see on ITV and these channels and whatever, you see them crying in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept each and every dua.
Ameen.
I have a question. Or something I want to talk, and again, I didn't press the right buttons, but now everything.
We do have sound though, right?
Yes, sound. Your sound was loud, and like my manager from the sound, the big grey beard, mashallah, shouting. Ibrahim sound is عد أنا صح.
Okay.
The question, there was a question. Let's say in my preparation of my khutbah today, I was watching a video too. So there was also one sheikh, but he was on Rahmat TV, Sheikh Muhammad Hassan's channel. Okay. So he was speaking about Arafah as one place, right? And then the clothing is one clothing. And Wuquf is then one time, one portion of that. But then why is it Arafat in the Quran? Why is it Jam when everything is singular? Why? That's the question.
I'm hoping that you have the answer, because I was like waiting to get the answer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because he said like each one's Arafat. While everybody gets together as an individual, because you're there, everybody's asking for his own thing. Yes. Everybody is crying for his own thing.
You're there with a million people, but you alone. It's just you and Allah.
Exactly. You're there with a million people, but you're there, and it reminds you of the mahshar. The only thing is you can't do anything in that next at the mahshar. You can't do anything.
Yes. But here you have the ultimate opportunity.
There's also nafsi.
No, definitely. It's about trying to gain the most for yourself.
Yeah. So Mashayikh, I went into the LGBTQ thing. I had to do it because
Where did you speak today?
I spoke at my own masjid.
Okay.
I don't own a masjid. Downstairs, I spoke downstairs in my condition. I spoke, but I came from another angle. So there's this love stories from the Quran.
Sheikh, what's his name?
Adam.
Okay, yeah.
Love stories of the Quran. But then he speaks about, it's not proven in hadith, but when Adam alayhi salam and Hawa, they banished from Jannah, Adam comes down in the weak narrations. So it's somewhere in Sri Lanka. And then Hawa comes down in Jeddah, but he then searches for her, right? And then they find each other.
That's where he Arafah.
Arafah. But my thing was, it was a male seeking. My point was, imagine Adam decided, yes, she's not around, I'm going to identify as a girl. It would have been the end of humanity. And we don't understand the danger of it, because if we look at the people of Lut's response, they don't have a response except the municipal school. They want to keep them. They don't want religion. There was this video clip of a priest in America. Right, he was reading his Bible, minding his own business, and then there was a gay pride parade that came past. Right, these people came, took his Bible. Right, so I told the Muslims in the masjid, it's not only Islam, it's organized religion. They don't want organized religion. They took his Bible, threw it on the ground, and started kicking it. Like a soccer ball. You saw that?
Someone commented, someone wrote, maybe posted on social media. I read about it.
So they kicked the Bible, and then the police came to defuse the situation. They arrested the priest for incitement. They arrested the priest sitting in the park. They said, no, but you must know there's going to be a march. So you incited the people. Hence he was arrested.
But that is the conditions that we live in today.
Yeah. No, I was listening to a lecture a year ago. I don't know if it's safe to mention the speaker's name. Yeah. He spoke about how the LGBTQ movement spread in America. You know, there's one guy, two gentlemen, they actually wrote a book how to spread the LGBTQ movement. You know, in America.
And it's almost like they're following that manual.
Yeah. Following that manual. Yeah, 20% of LGBT members should be in the acting industry, in a movie, whatever it is. That's how they push the narrative, man. So anything today. I came across something on Netflix yesterday, and it was like about LGBTQ related. You know, like how does it fit even in, man? And now with the MGC gave up wrote up a fatwa how to interact with this fahisha, and this local LGBTQ imam had a problem with that. And he said, like I'm picturing how he's saying, "A'udhu billah." You say you put out this fatwa and it's Pride Month. And then because it's Pride Month, he says, "A'udhu billah," and you're causing all these issues in the community. He's basically saying the industry is peddling misinformation regarding homosexuality and LGBTQ, and it's Pride Month. I mean, you don't even say respect our month.
But you know why?
This guy's got no hayya.
Yeah, but you know how that fatwa came about, right? It wasn't just
willy-nilly. Yeah.
No. Something happened probably.
He made a documentary.
Yeah, that what's it called? Radical. The life of a gay imam.
But there's a few people have made comments about the LGBTQ movement, and so yes, we know it's something bad and something that's a problem, and it's a social issue that we'll have to tackle. But if you look at it from a different perspective, they actually had goals put into place. They said, look, this is what we want. This is what we want to propagate. This is the way we're going to infiltrate to be able to get things done. Yeah, we struggling with da'wah, right? This is the way, the forward thinking and progression that we need to be doing, and that is how are we going to spread Islam? How are we going to give the message out to people? We know that this is the haqq, but we're not necessarily doing what needs to be done to get it out there. In the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's khutbah, in the Khutbatul Wada', right, he mentioned that for those people who are here, tell those people who are not here, right? And then constantly this should be done. This should be propagated all the time. People should be giving the message. We've been given that responsibility by the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to make this da'wah, but yet we're using the same methods that maybe haven't even been working for a long time. Are we making inroads in different communities? And here we have like 1% of the population, and they're controlling so many things. They're controlling media. They're controlling everything.
Can I share something with regards to something that clicks now? Like years back, Tommy's Maulana son Hendrix passed on.
I don't know, maybe.
Now, prior to that, when he was still traveling, I think he stopped traveling for like 5 years before. So I'm talking about maybe
10 years back, 12 years.
Longer. I think I had this discussion with him in Egypt. He said his phone rang one day, and they asked, "Can they speak to your son Hendrix?" Organization from America wanting to sponsor a documentary. They got the names mixed up. They got the names mixed up with Hassan and Mohsin.
Muhsin, yeah.
So, for that type of batil, organizations are headhunting. Money machines are headhunting this type of thought.
Because
And then he listened to it. He gave him chance to speak. And then he said, soon you're going to see the sponsoring documentaries.
So this documentary, I don't know if it's the same. I know this guy Muhsin, this individual Muhsin Hendricks was in a documentary a couple of years ago, but then they went to different countries. So there's like a gay guy, imam, in France. There's a gay imam in Australia.
Netherlands as well.
In Netherlands, they've got like a representative in each country, and they have these big interfaith, gatherings with priests and rabbis and from various religions who identify as gay, come to these places. And now Mohsin Hendricks has actually changed these organizations' name from the Inner Circle to Al Ghuraba.
Yeah, I saw that.
But I think, Sheikh, for the viewers, explain.
Yeah, subhanAllah, Al Ghuraba, we have a body of literature of hadith where the Prophet spoke about the Ghuraba. These are a group of people from the Muslim Ummah that will come towards the end of time. Yeah, they will cling to the deen, they will cling to the Sunnah. They will yuslihun ma afsada nas. They will fix what people corrupt.
Yeah.
They will be termed the Ghuraba. And he's conveniently taken that title, strangers,
Mm.
which is a term of nobility and respect. Inshallah, we make dua to Allah, Allah makes us from them.
Amen.
And he has hijacked the term for his organization. They are the Ghuraba.
Sanawat and Khadda'at. Confused
Subhanallah.
times. Confused.
Subhanallah.
But again, it all comes back to the basics. The Prophet sends Mu'adh, tells him, and that it always comes back to. And sometimes when you speak about Tawheed and you warn people about Shirk, they would say it's again the stuff. Again, you keep it. But we can't do without it. Actually, when we had our brothers recovering drug addicts, it comes back to that.
I mean, how many volumes of literature are written on just on that? I mean, volumes and volumes of literature written on Tawheed, on Aqidah, and those issues, because we know that it's so important. But yet, that's not always what we focus on. I mean, how many Tawheed and Aqidah classes do we have in Cape Town? Right? But yet we have fiqh, we have nikah, we all Arabic, right? But we don't have classes that specifically speak about Tawheed and Aqidah. And that's something that's needed.
But I think also we should make the distinction. I mean, pushing Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, Allah should be worshipped alone. Imani. It should be Imani, man.
Yes.
We teach it from a theoretical angle, man. The guy can list all the Aqidah aspects for you, but it doesn't impact his life, man. And the da'wah of the Prophet ﷺ was very organic, man. It wasn't very formal. I won't say it's not formalized, but what I'm saying is there's a list of things that they needed to know.
Generic, man.
And it wasn't very academic, man. But it is academic. But I mean, like, it was organic, it spoke to the hearts of the Sahaba. You get what I'm saying? Because we want the mind of people and we want their hearts, emotions and the intelligence. We want that,
And I mean, Sheikh Yusuf, you did the hadith of Jabir recently, and you mentioned it constantly that many of those people that came on that Hajj, this is where they became companions, right? This is the first time they're meeting the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But for him to have that impact on them, it wasn't just because of the theoretical things. It was because it touched hearts, and that's what we need to do with people these days. We need to get back to that. We need to touch people's hearts.
I mean, we spoke about the rectification. There was what's his name? The Sahabi that spoke in Salam.
Muawiyah ibn al-Hakam.
Right? He comes and he starts speaking. The people are speaking back to him. He's like, what's happening? I'm talking to you guys, and they just continue with the Salah. But then he says after that, never found a teacher, before that or after that better than the Prophet. So it touched him in the manner the Prophet rectified. And then the very famous story of the guy who relates in the masjid. He said, "Oh Allah, forgive me, and Muhammad and nobody else." Because the Prophet touched him.
But the Sheikh did mention in his khutbah as well that you remember Hujjaj and Muslims, wherever you find yourself, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as what? A witness, a shining lantern.
Mubashir.
Yes.
So take from them, if we can illustrate or if we can paint a picture of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to people, then that picture alone would speak to the whole
In our dawah, we should,
Without-
we should
yes.
live that, those qualities
Yes.
that is mentioned in the
Yes,
verse. Yeah.
yes.
Muhammad, you've been still. I think Muhammad wants to come in.
The thing is like, after listening to your conversation, mashallah, a couple of things click on my mind. One of it is that any movement that comes out, their main target is not those who know something. Their target is that people who don't know. In our country now,
How do you combat that?
okay, in my country now, Somalia, there's so many people that like to come overseas, like leave the country, go to civilized country, and now the means now people are targeting how they look. Okay, I want to go to say Canada. Okay. Now there's a guy who comes to say, I'm from Canada, I'm willing to take people. Now he starts preaching these people in a different da'wah way, but he's still using your da'wah and saying, look, your Prophet used to greet the men. The Prophet used to hug the men. The Prophet, you used to make ma'aqana, used to kiss their forehead. But what so changes? Why? If I'm kissing another brother, you're saying it's another problem. But the Prophet did. Now this person starts saying, and there's no illah to stop him. He takes this guy's bringing false hadith or correct, it doesn't matter.
Misunderstanding.
Yes,
Yeah.
now the person comes to him and says, okay, yeah, you're right. Now he's in a trap. When he's in a trap, they offer him the same offer that they promised him. You want to go to Canada? No problem. Now
Yes.
he's using Canada. Canada, new organization catch him. No deen. Another country catch him. Automatically changes aqidah. At the end of the day, that person starts making children, having a wife. How will his generation end? You see, to the end, it's going to come to these people are not looking for people like Sheikh Yusuf, us and our old scholars and our teachers. They're looking people that the da'wah hasn't reached yet. There was a Muslim brother once came to my dad and he embraced Islam and he said, I want to ask one thing. He said, why don't we get something like, I can go to a sheikh, the imam of the masjid, and I can tell him my problems and he can just tell me, I'll speak to God or I'll speak to someone and he has still that jahiliyyah of, there was a priest, he goes there, he says, I ask
Yes.
and he will be forgiven. Now, if that person, we don't correct him, tomorrow he will still say, no, look, maybe I'm just going to look for someone. And then he gets into a hand that the person giving what he wants, automatically stop. Which means what I'm hearing from this true, the person needs to be built based on tawheed, it's aqidah. Afterward, he will be the children. Our form of teaching, the form of where we taught in the madrasas, especially in the small madrasas, when they teach you today an ayah, they'll put more focus into aqidah. In which form? I remember we would come in the morning, Saturday and Sundays, there's no school. In the morning, by the way, all Quran class have to end. After lunch, we would sit down, the teacher will automatically start drilling in our heads that there's only one God, there's no shirk, you don't associate nothing, not your father, not your mother. You will take all the superior things that we will come imagine. Okay, what about the malaikas? What about that? What about that?
Superstitious.
Yes, you will cut off all that and say there's only one Allah. And then we'll quote all the hadith. Now tomorrow when I come out, when I come to school, I won't listen to my teacher when he studies. The teacher when she talks about Christianity and the three gods, all that. I won't take it because my first basic was be built. And one thing I like of the Sunnah is that every time we start a khutbah, any time of khutbah, there we start with the hadith, or we start with the tawheed. We start with the person of the aqidah. Once there's a joke. The brother came. I gave him a khutbah, but it was not a Jum'ah khutbah, just a normal topic. And then, I would come to that part, فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله. And then, when I finished, the brother just put up his hand, and I was too shy to say answer because I want him to answer questions. And he told me, he said, brother, are you here to spread this ummah or are you here to tell us something in the si'ah? Well, I can't answer. I started shivering, and the first time standing up front of the ummah, I was like, subhanAllah, I don't know, man. I just kept quiet, and the committee start cooling the brother off, and I continued. Which means sometimes also, the surrounding of us, it's like they have this kind of jahiliyyah of our father used to do that, our uncles used to do that. The end of the day, these people come, whatever method of deals they have, they won't target Sheikh Fulan. They will target his community, but they won't target him alone. You understand? I think that's the reason. I just kept in my mind.
Okay. What do they call a madrasa in Somalia? Duksi.
But I think Muhammad, latching on to what you said, I think it's important for the khatib or the da'i also to be flexible. Like you said, I don't know what to say now. I mean, and this person interrupted you. When that Arabic comes to the Prophet and tells him, be just.
Yeah.
Be just. I mean, the Prophet could have been upset. The Prophet could have taken offense. But I mean, he adjusted himself to the situation. As du'at, sometimes I think we take ourselves too serious.
Definitely.
Because, I mean...
But I think it's the culture in which we grow up in. So the sheikh is beyond question.
Yeah.
The sheikh is beyond question. So, I interact a lot in my community and stuff like that, with khutbahs and different talks. No? And I make mukhalaf of the nas. I mix with the people, man. I mix with the people. And so for him, it's like, well, this is strange. This guy's like one of us, man. Obviously, you need to strike the balance.
There has to be a balance.
There has to be a balance here. You can't, become so much with the people and be so much with the people that, I said that.
When you do come with information, when you do want to teach them something,
exactly. So, it's because we grow up in a culture with and I think this is not restricted to South Africa, Cape Town. This is in most parts of the world. Whereas the scholars are here, there's a disconnect. So that adjusting doesn't even come in. The sheikh is beyond question.
One, Sheikh Ibrahim was with me one night. We went and visited Sheikh Salman al-Awda. Myself, Sheikh Ibrahim.
Sheikh Bilal. I saw the photos.
You saw the photos?
Yeah, I saw you.
It was in
Seapoint.
It was a Seapoint in a flat with Shabab. And they were jumping on this. I was like...
And I was shocked when I saw Sheikh Salman, like, this is different, very different.
When you meet the other mashayikh, it's like...
You're too scared to speak.
The guys were jumping on him, they were running on the couch, they were like...
These big guys?
Big guys. You need to wait, it's early to wait.
He brought him what Atosadi?
No, there were students here.
English students.
He met up with university.
They loved him. Yeah.
He's a gem, man. He's like when the scholars used to write about one another, Faridul Dahr, Wahidul Zaman. He's like that. I spoke to someone and he said, no, but the Sheikh is more knowledgeable than Sheikh Salman. I said, it's not that, man. Everyone has not been blessed with the gifts that Allah has blessed him with. The ability to mix. Like, even if you read these books now, you want to cry every time. You want to just read because you can see, it tells you what type of person he is, man. He's easy, he's relaxed,
I mean, he made headlines going on Hajj on a scooter. Yeah. And I said, it's just easier. How do I get from one hamala to the next? How do I get to the one camp to the next? I mean, to drive a car, it's crazy.
That night, I can't seem to forget about the meal, man. Right? Because there was no food, and he was like, "No, we need to have food." Then he tells the guys, "Go buy like the ingredients for the food. We're gonna make it." And it was already like 11 o'clock, right? And they actually made kabsa. They made like proper kabsa, right? And it was like 11 o'clock the night, and they started making it. And he's like, "We have lots of time. We know what we're doing."
He came for some list. He wrote 4 books. There's actually a video.
He came to rest.
He came to rest, just like what do you call it?
Sabbatical, yeah.
Came for a sabbatical, and then he wrote, I think 4 books, or 2 books. And there's actually a video where he's telling Sheikh Ardawi.
No, I saw that video. I saw that video.
So it's on the former Daib.
Yeah.
But it's not like, again, it's like more
relaxed.
He's got the book. I don't know if he wrote that book. Yes, Kayfa Nakhali. How to describe Kayfa Nakhali. But I saw that video where he sits with Sheikh.
Wait, visa for.
I doubt that they're going to listen to this one. This podcast will get lost amongst all the thousands of other podcasts. But that's a beautiful what's the name? And he sits like a proper talib al-ilm in front of Sheikh Allah.
Sheikh for me.
No, I'm saying we're speaking about Sheikh Salvana, we're speaking about shuyukh that we've read the books and we kind of admire them and we aspire to be like them. And today is the day we recognize our weaknesses. It was Arafah. So now we look within ourselves. What is our weaknesses? What are we striving toward? All of us, we have Common.
My weakness is stick. My weakness is looking after this. And next time someone says you can't make it, then we just like
They said that. No, but this was a must. I don't think we could skip any other session, a podcast, Thursday night, but this one was a must. Yeah.
Sheikh, so okay. I'm moving away from the Sheikh's Khutbah.
Inshallah, we'll have to sum up the Sheikh's Khutbah.
Yeah, inshallah.
With summary.
We'll give it a few minutes, inshallah. But for me, when I spoke about the LGBTQ, and I could see in the face of some brothers, though you say as rape means issues, that's very right.
People were like,
but then I reminded them of وشاهدي ومشهود. That's very seldom that we have the Jum'ah and the Arafah. You have that, Salat al-Istijaba of the Jum'ah. And then you have the day of Arafah, which is the best day for dua. So why not make dua for your kids? Who's face, or even if you're facing that. I think that also came out, I think it was in the fatwa of him just see if you experiencing that. It's not like you have the feelings and also we're going to reject it. No. It's an acting upon it.
Yeah, the acting, yeah.
And we overlook the power of dua.
That was amazing, yeah. So when I started my khutbah today, right? My khutbah wasn't on Arafah because
okay.
At this masjid.
I would love to hear the topic. What was the topic?
Masjid, Yusuf. At this masjid, they invite me because of this topic that I'm speaking about, right?
Was it Nabi Yusuf?
Yeah.
Yo.
I couldn't turn away from that, but I thought to myself, Ashik, you cannot start with Surah Yusuf and you make no reference to the day of Arafah. And subhanAllah, there were so many fawaid that they can mention to the people, like Allah accepts du'as regularly today. Ma'amin yawm, it is our day that Allah, frees more people from the hellfire. Then on this day, yubahi bikumul malaika. Allah posts.
Allah. If there's one thing that has stuck in my mind for the past week, it's definitely been one of paintings. No, you need to.
Wait.
Yes.
I never opened the video, so I thought the whole video is about him. And afterwards, I saw it's like 4 parts. There's like me, you, and Sheikh Wasim in there. But I didn't know. But you can see that fiery part for it, man.
Yeah.
No,
the shivel. That was like dusty. The shivel. Wallahi, and I think of that image in my mind, and I looking at the videos as well. The live streaming people on Arafah. Those words just like stick in my mind because that's how you are on that day, and that is where you see the power of dua. Where you say, because sometimes your life is so busy, and yes, Qiyamul Layl is there, but it's like the whole world is waiting for that dua. I mean, people. I saw one person. They have the book. They wrote the book, and all the different names that of people that can make dua for. And like a whole notebook of people that they're gonna make dua for. From someone who they worked with years ago, a teacher at school, all these things. And I'm thinking, I immediately I said, I'm gonna message this person. I want to get my name in that book, man. But we're waiting. Everyone's waiting on their dua. And
I'm not saying my dua is mustajab. I had experience during Hajj, so I think I did Qiran or Ifrad. But anyway, I came in and it was full. Right? And this brother was like really being annoying. He was knocking up against me. So I'm like in the haram, I'm just like, I can see him. The brother stepped into a drawing pin or something like just after that, man, and he was like in excruciating pain. I'm thinking, Allah, and I think, and when parents make dua for the children, like one of the imams of the haram, I think it was Sheikh Mayrum Aikli, the Hajj day. Allah make you, Allah make you an imam of the haram. But like we curse. I hear people curse the children
So basically, you say you make the curses something good from now on.
If you're angry, I think when you're angry with each other, when people discipline, they say that we eat with love.
Yes.
Don't curse. Make you out with love. I think that's.
No, but I think that's a nice added tradition that a lot of people have. Like they'll make dua, but then the dua is like they're so angry, but then it's a dua that they make for you.
Yeah, the Arabs are things that they say.
Yes. Yeah, Allah yatik al-afiyah. But then actually, barakallahu feek, right? And then it's like, almost like, please just stay away from me.
In actual fact, that was something which was like blew my mind when I started reading, a certain Sheikh's books. Hafidhakullah, he speaks about Tawheed, speaks about 3 principles. But then,
Ya Allah,
you know,
rahimakallah.
yeah, you know, it's like it's like you came from it.
Definitely.
Sheikh, we in the last few minutes almost iftar time, so we're gonna around that on that point. What points didn't we
So
touch?
we spoke about taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and from the taqwa of Allah, the Sheikh branched out right into Tawheed and the importance of Tawheed. He spoke about the pillars of Islam, pillars of Iman, and he spoke about Ihsan. Another thing that he spoke about is hastening towards good.
Yes.
And in hastening towards good, that's where he broke up, he mentioned aspects of akhlaq. He quoted the hadith, indeed, the closest of you to me on the day of judgment, will be ahasanakum akhlaqa.
Yes.
Those are the best character. And he quoted many ayat and ahadith on this topic. He also spoke about, the importance of distancing ourselves from enmity, hatred, hating one another. I think, especially among scholars of Islam and people who are in a position of, responsibility like that, I think we need to work a bit more on that. He spoke about ta'awun, helping one another, assisting one another in good. And obviously, these are topics that we can break down a bit further. We need to unpack a bit more, And then his third main point was the importance of dua. We spoke about the importance of dua.
I mean, in that time right now.
Yeah, and he
Friday
mentioned,
time at least.
And the wukuf time.
he mentioned the fact that we shorten our prayers, Dhuhr and Asr, and we joined them because so that the entire day be open for dua.
For dua,
So when we come there, Dhuhr and Asr sorted, and then the rest of the day.
Now it's just ask.
Isha and Muzdalifah.
Yes, yeah.
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 Biggest 8 hour gap
For dua.
just to ask.
You get what I'm saying?
And people generally forget that Muzdalifah, like the bit. They're like, oh, khalas, I'm done with Arafah. Khalas, I'm done. Right?
Yeah.
But there's still time.
But you drain at the drain. Arafah drains you. So you every year at Hujjajis back then, before this break we had with COVID and all of that, you would hear the Hujjaj of the previous year, they tell you that to start us op Arafah, man. En ek kan nie meer nie, en ek was so 'n breeze. But wallahi, that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, man. Just when you feel that, look here, this is cut out for me now, it's like
My eyes are like, I can't anymore.
There's that breeze, and I always thought, spoke stories, man. Makkah stories, man. Arafah stories. But wallahi, until you
Makatinis.
until you're there and you experience it, and then you feel that, and you see them.
I'm just thinking about that biryani now. I'm just thinking about that.
We asked the Mashayikh last week how they felt when they saw the Kaaba the first time. How did you feel?
Wallahi, I think I was it you who said you cried? Wallahi, I think I was with two brothers. We drove from Qasim to Mecca. It's almost 12 hours. And then when we reached there, the brother was telling us, look, you guys, we're going to take, obviously, before you go into the miqat, you took a
Taif,
yes.
Taif.
To also then went in.
Taif is very quick.
All my part I was taking, my only thing in my head was how Makkah looked like, how was the Haram look like. Because I always used to watch from the, this TVs and stuff like that. I went, and then the brother was with me, mashallah, was a very tall man, chubby. He was always in front of me, and I was just behind him. Now one time just moved out. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I saw the Kaaba.
Allah.
And then the only thing came to my mind was like, what must I say? What must I say? Like, I don't know what dua must I say. What dua must I utter? What supplication must I say? To the extent, I'm just realizing like there's someone just keeping me hold here the whole time. After, I think, was it 20 minutes, 30 minutes, brother just told me, look, man, please tie up your it's almost falling because
almost.
Because he was holding it.
Yes.
Okay. I was like, this one on top was long time one. Because the only thing I was like, I started, busy, like taking what do you call the tawaf. And then I don't know. I'm just saying Allahu Akbar. Nothing else coming to my tongue. To the extent, the first day passed, the second day now a bit now, I just got used to it. And then came to the similar thing where you have a list of people that expecting du'as, and la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There's a brother next to me. He told me something that surprised me. It's also lack of knowledge also brings a problem. This brother said he was saving up for, I think, 15 years up for this Umrah he had. But the surprise it was when he told me, look, he said, we talked a little bit, where you from? And then he said he's from Ghana. And then I'm like, whenever we speak, he stops, he will make salah. Then I said, what is the salah you're making, man? It doesn't look like a sunnah salah. It's 4 rak'ahs. He would tell me, no, brother, I heard that whatever salah you make here, it will be multiplied by that. Which means I'm doing a couple of years, my farad salah.
Ahead.
No, I think probably Qadha.
Well, maybe wait.
Oh, he's upcoming. Allah Alam. Which means it was surprised. And a lot of people, you see making du'as and see du'as. Then they will come. Today, just that same video after the Sheikh left the khutbah, there's this brother was like taking the mic around, and he asked the brother from Algeria, what reminds you from the time of Rasulullah? He will say, look, he said, whenever the time the ayah comes down and someone is reciting, he said, tears come to my eyes. And then he started reciting, and he started chunking. Start crying.
Joking. Yeah.
And he would cry, and and the brother just tried to move the mic to another person. I felt, I said, subhanAllah, oh Allah, give me an opportunity. He gave me an opportunity to see a bait, but this time Hajj, inshallah.
Ameen.
You guys saw the clip of that uncle that sold his house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
You know,
He's crying. Yeah, I mean, like, he doesn't
Which
have a
country is he
wife.
from? He's from somewhere in Africa.
Also African
It
country.
was, it's like odd name, I think.
Not West Africa.
I think it's Guinea-Bissau or something.
Oh,
Something
okay.
in the Moroccan name. Like
you know, Sheikh Yusuf, you're talking about the first time seeing the Kaaba.
that.
No. I'm not going to mention me. No, I'm not going to mention me.
You were supposed to be.
No, I'm not going to mention me. Oh, should I mention? Okay, I used to like taking people in for seeing, like, to seeing the Kaaba for the first time, because I want to see what happens, like, what the be. And probably the most memorable one is I remember, Sheikh Rafik Osman. I took him in after he was supposed to go with the rest of the group, but then he got sick, and then with shame, right? And then I took him in like maybe a couple of weeks later. So we go in, and so Sheikh Rafik, he sees the Kaaba for the first time, and he just breaks down. And I'm standing there. I've been to the right, and then he just breaks down, and I'm thinking to myself, subhanAllah, like, this is the type of emotion that I actually want to have every time I see the Kaaba, man. Because this is, I remember when he got sick, he was like, he was thinking, Allah's putting so many things in my way. Am I ever gonna get there? And then finally, because he was sick in Medina, and then when he finally got there, he just broke down, he started crying, and we took a while before we actually completed the Umrah. So yeah.
I won't take it for granted, because I mean, when you go or you live there or whatever, you think, I'm gonna come again. I think COVID really taught us.
The value of those moments.
Shaykh, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your fasting.
Ameen.
And all good deeds, inshallah. And du'as during this moments of the day of Arafah. Inshallah, barakallahu feekum. If I don't see you again, Eid Mubarak.
Bye, Selamat. Selamat.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.